Testing. Hello. I'm back. With a horrendous and big applause, how have you liked the user conference so far? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Excellent, excellent. We've had a lot of folks who have put this together, and just want to say congratulations to everybody who has helped put all these details together for the user conference. It is my honor to introduce the closing speaker of this year's Lectora User Conference, and I think we've saved the best for last. Ted Rubin is the Chief Social Marketing Officer at Collective Bias in New York. Collective Bias facilitates the creation of real shopper media by connecting groups of social media influencers to the brands and retailers they use in their daily lives. Ted is also on the advisory board of Collective Bias. He's also on the advisory boards of Open Sky and She Speaks. And She Speaks, the social marketing engagement advisor on Big Field Communications, a social media agency that takes brands from content to commerce. So it's how do you drive from social media to commerce. And he's also a social marketing strategist and brand evangelist for a company called Zuberance, a company that identifies, mobilizes, and tracks brand advocates. He's a native New Yorker, and you'll never guess that when you hear him talk. So Ted holds a Bachelor of Science in Business and Economics from Cornell University. He's divorced, he's got 2 teenage daughters, and lives in Long Island. He has a very deep online background beginning in 1997 working with best-selling author Seth Godin. And if you've ever heard that name, he is an icon of the marketing world. And he was at Yoyodyne, which was acquired in 1998 by Yahoo. Now, when Ted and I met a few years ago in one of our CMO Club meetings, he was Chief Marketing Officer for e.l.f. Cosmetics. How many people in here have heard of e.l.f. Cosmetics? Excellent. So well, I'm glad the guys didn't raise their hands. So I think John Blackman, we'll talk about that later. So, but at e.l.f. Cosmetics, he used, is Charles Beach in the room? Oh, excellent. This is the part I didn't want you to hear. So at e.l.f. Cosmetics, he used social media alone and word of mouth to drive the company's revenue from $15 million a year to over $40 million. And that was with products that cost between $1 and $5 each. So think about that. He built an incredible loyal followers, and it's all about relationships, as you'll soon hear. So I'm fortunate that I can call Ted a good friend and pal, but let me tell you, folks, that is not an exclusive club. Ted has become known for his active use of Twitter, where he has in excess of 50,000 followers. Ted is the world's most followed chief marketing officer on Twitter, where he has one of the deepest networks of any marketer in the social arena. He has over 2,200 close friends on his personal Facebook account. And Ted is really a CMO's CMO. And in fact, he doesn't even refer to himself as a CMO anymore because he's kind of well beyond. And he's the first Chief Social Marketing Officer. So with that, please join me to give a warm welcome to Mr. Ted Rubin.
I don't know if there's anything else left to say, so I'll say goodnight to you folks and catch my plane. Pete kind of fashions, I met Pete through the CMO Club, and Pete kind of fashions himself a comedian. I don't know if he told any of you folks, but he actually won the CMO comedy contest at the CMO Club. I'm not going to really tell you much about his routine, but it did have to do a lot with being Irish and drinking. I was very fortunate. I got to know Seth Godin early on before he became quite as famous as he is. I don't know if you all know who he is. He's a famous marketer. He coined the term permission marketing, which is just part of the lexicon now when you talk about marketing in general. I was fortunate enough to work with him back in 1997 and 1998 before we got acquired by Yahoo. And he was a very interesting guy. I was living up there without my family, didn't want to stay at my in-laws very long, so I got to the office very early every day and really got to pick his brain. So I've been around the digital space for a long time, and I've seen the evolution from traditional digital that was the new thing that everybody was trying to do, and now digital has kind of become traditional. I mean, who has a marketing plan that digital isn't a part of? And the next evolution has been this whole social environment, but I like to say, I think social's been around forever. I mean, social is us meeting each other. Social is us getting a chance to talk. Email is social. Digital is social. So, you know, it's really a lot about friendships. What's happened now is that there are platforms that have scaled to the point where, there are platforms that have scaled to the point where we can speak to many very, very easily and communicate with each other. So, what is the true value of social media to a brand? Everyone's talking about that. Some people say social media is great, but what does it really do for us? Okay, and it's really hard to measure, and one of the things I talk about a lot is that you can't measure it the way you measure everything else. So, you know, I believe many people are looking at this in too narrow a fashion. Most people are trying to focus and assign a dollar value to a Facebook fan or a Twitter follower instead of paying attention to the fact that without the engagement and interaction that takes place in these mediums, the value of each user is greatly diminished. That's really the value of what's happening here. The relationships built with existing and future customers fuel activation and the conversion of these users into influencers through meaning experiences. And influencers are people that, we're all influencers to a certain degree. There are people that are much bigger influencers, and we all have influence on somebody, whether it's our friends, our family, our kids, or the people that we work with. So if we don't value social media with the end in mind, with thinking about what are our goals, okay? Where do we want to be? Our numbers are essentially meaningless. And they're indicators simply who show up online, but not what's going to matter to brand success. So, you know, there's a great term that Jeffrey Hazlett used. I don't know if you guys know who Jeffrey Hazlett is. He's the ex-CMO of Kodak. Jeffrey left Kodak. He now has a big speaking career. He's starting a few different companies. He's supposed to have some TV shows pretty soon. But one of the terms that he's coined that I love is conditions of satisfaction. So everybody talks about expectations, but expectations can be here and they're very hard to meet. When you meet with someone, or you meet with a boss, or you meet with a potential customer, or you meet with the people that want to learn from what you're trying to teach. But conditions of satisfaction are, what can you give me, where can I get to that you'll be happy with what I produce for you, in whatever format it's in. So instead of a brand's presence relying on traditional means of catching attention through the initial look and feel of whether it's a website, a brochure, television, it now includes a broader and deeper ongoing connection. Understand that people are expecting more from you today, okay? With audience members, based on brand personality and relationship. You know, it's who you are and what you stand for that's very, very important. Also, unlike traditional ad campaigns in their weeks to months to market with brochures and television ads, social media has the power of intimacy, okay, and seconds and minutes to market. So you can really reach people, see how they're reacting, and adjust your message very easily. So tweets, Facebook postings, YouTube clips, all of these things can be adjusted on the fly at any moment. So in other words, with social media, we can communicate now daily, thereby allowing and requiring a brand to adjust and change course and redirect on any schedule they say worthwhile, depending upon the feedback they're receiving every day. And this applies to any market, whether it be CPG, consumer packaged goods, whether it be a restaurant chain, or whether it be e-learning and something that you're teaching people, and the ability of them to give you feedback on how it's working for them. Now, as these relationships are built and nurtured, an incredible partnerships forms, which circumvents the traditional modes and timelines of activation. Now a brand can call upon its followers, advocates, and raving fans to help them with any initiative that presents itself as important to the brand, and they are immediately ready to launch into action. Don't make the mistake of viewing your friends, fans, followers as an audience instead of an asset. Audience is the old mode. It's broadcast. It's speaking to people. But these people are an asset for you. They're people that can receive your message and that you can really talk to and interact with and know what's happening. Now, at Elf Cosmetics, I spent a year building a very broad, interactive, and well-respected social media presence via Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and most importantly, and this is a really important point, by courting the blogging community. I don't know how many of you are familiar with bloggers, if you read blogs, if you go through that thing, but the power of social media, in my opinion, the power rests with the bloggers. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, they're platforms. It's who creates the content on those platforms that's really important. So now, this took a great deal of time at ELF. It doesn't happen overnight. And as all you guys are aware, you all work at companies, whether you're putting together learning programs or you're selling something, management tends to want immediate results. They want to see how this leads to something that benefits the company. Okay? Now, it takes a long time, and like everyone else in the space, the management there wanted to see immediate results. Okay? They were pushing me to say, when can we market to these people? You know, you're building this presence, but what can we do with them? And most were interested in driving direct sales from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube audiences. And you have to understand, it takes time to build this relationship. And if you go out and try to sell people something, you meet somebody, you walk up to them, you talk to them, and the next words out of your mouth is, I got something great for you. You would never do that in your personal relationships. Well, maybe some of you would, I don't know. But in general, how many people in this room are familiar with Facebook? How many people have a Facebook page? Okay, so just about everybody, right? It's getting ubiquitous around this country. Everybody uses it in different ways. How many people would say they're on there an hour a day? 5 hours a week? Okay, do most of you guys proactive on Facebook? You post things, or you just kind of lurk and want to see what other people are putting up there? Okay, next step. How many people have a Twitter account here? Pretty good. Pete, better than you thought, huh? Pete thought all you guys like social media, you guys aren't really involved in that kind of stuff. And how many of you are active on Twitter? Anybody here use it for research? Try to figure out what's going on. Anybody here use it for news? Communication? I mean, think about all the different ways that you can do this. Now, what's really important, again, and I'm going to go back to this, is that your audience is an asset. Oh, wait a second. There we go. The refusal to view fans as an asset is a clearly evident key problem, and I find this in almost every company I go to. Right away, they want to know, how does this translate to sales? Most senior management has been spoiled over the last 10 years due to the scaling of easy trackable media, like email, search, affiliate. Just think back to the branding days, when companies were built by branding. I mean, how many of you here can say 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun? I mean, that's reach and frequency. That's branding. When it absolutely positively has to be there. I don't even have to tell you who the brands are. You guys knew who they are. And this was incredibly valuable in building brands, but a lot of companies are forgetting about that today because they're getting very used to things that allow them to track everything immediately. And these are incredibly powerful and worthwhile marketing tools. But they have caused many to forget the long-term power of building a brand and how loyal customers actually evolve and how much value they can produce. Again, we need to consider the end result, not just the raw numbers of users and hits, in order to accurately assess the value of the relationships. Now, I can talk for days about this, but without real-life experiences and examples, these concepts are just another opinion about how to make sense of social media. Allow me, therefore, to back up my opinions with some affirmation from my days at ELF. At ELF, with no budget other than my time and travel, our social media outreach and earned media attention, and for those of you that are not familiar with the term earned media, basically it means PR, but it's come to include social and anything where you're not paying for an immediate budget option to buy some media. Okay? We managed to create a powerful following of dynamic brand advocates. I define dynamic advocate as not a passive liking or recommending or sharing, but instead it's characterized by vigorous, forceful, and effective action. These ELF dynamic advocates were bloggers who demonstrated a sincere interest in being involved with things like comments and questions for a new site design before it was launched, advanced knowledge of new product releases, and samples of those products in order to help spread the word, helping to choose new colors, products, etc. We involve them in the process. And the most important thing is that if you're going to involve them, you have to be committed to listening to them, because they're going to know if you're just putting this out for lip service. So just to give you an example, again, we all have challenges. Built a huge social media following. The brand was growing. ELF had literally no marketing budget. Everything was co-promotion, was building our database through word of mouth. using social media to grow, partnering with major corporations, because we ended up building a database of 2.3 million women that came to our site, only of which 800,000 had bought product. Because they were there because we were delivering social aspects around it. We were dealing content. We had beauty blogs. We had blogs that weren't just about beauty. Just because we're a cosmetic site or whatever it is you do, it doesn't have to be about your specific subject. It can be about things that are of interest to your audience. And how do you find that out? You reach out to them. You let them communicate with you. You listen to them. But more importantly, and how many of you, I'm sure you understand this, I mean, we're all married or have boyfriends or girlfriends. You got to hear them when they're talking, not just make like you're listening. Not just a blind stare at ESPN on the TV behind them, okay? But really paying attention. And when you pay attention to people like that, and you let them know you are, so you're committed to taking some of their advice, they're going to recognize it. And in this world, what would happen, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I asked a group of 80 women to give us their opinions on the site. And let's say I took one of their opinions. That's about as far as it would go. She might tell a couple of friends. But now that blogger writes a blog post and says, you know, I can't believe it. Elf Cosmetics came to me before they launched their site, and they asked my opinion to give them how easy it was to find products, or was there a better way to do it? And it was amazing, but 48 hours later, they launched their site, and my suggestion was a part of the site. So first of all, what you have to realize is learn to reach out to the right people. You don't want to, you have to start this well before you need it. So it can't just be today. You know, Peter comes to me and says, hey, we want to build a following for Drivantis. What can we do in 2 weeks? You know, can we ask them questions? Well, in 2 weeks, we might get a following, but we have no idea who these people are, what they do, what their real interest is in what we're doing, and how we can apply that to what we're building. So you have to start early. You have to communicate with them often. And you have to have a group that's committed to helping. And internally, you have to make sure that you have buy-in from management and from the C-level suite, that they're going to take this information seriously. So the most successful of these initiatives was during the launch of a test holiday promotion with Target stores. Now, this is really great because this can really show you what happens. Within 10 days of launch, there were in excess of 400 related blog posts that had to, and YouTube videos, and 1,000+ related Facebook postings, 1,000+ Twitter retweets, and hundreds of Whirl stories. Whirl is a location-based platform that none of you guys will ever experience again because it was bought by Groupon about a month ago, and all they really wanted was the IP, the intellectual property. And they're actually, you'll notice it happening in Groupon, because I would gather in this room, there have to be a lot of people that are subscribed to Groupon. You'll find out you're going to get a lot, you can start getting offers that are a lot more related to your tastes and your likes than just the general daily offer. And that's the technology from Whirl. So, but Whirl at one point was a location-based storytelling service, so you walk into Target or into an e-learning section, and you can take pictures, and you can take pictures of people in the group, and then you can share it and say, wow, this is really fabulous, because this is what's happening here, and this is how it's affecting my life. So what happened was all these blogs were written about the fact that Elf was suddenly available in Target stores. Now understand, Elf is a brand that sells cosmetics, eyeslipsface.com, for $1 a piece. So a lot of the men in the room might only know about that when they see their credit card bills, and there's a $200 charge for makeup on there. The women understand it because they know what it costs to buy makeup. But what Elf developed was a fabulous product that competed head-to-head with the prestige brands, but couldn't possibly compete with the budgets. Because when you're selling a product at $1, that others are selling basically the similar product at $20 or $30, you can imagine the difference in margins and the ability to advertise it. So you have to have a good product, something that people want to share. And we were getting a lot of people that wanted to have this in the retail stores. In the retail environment, it's very difficult to get slots for products like this because there's big fees involved. So what we had to do is we had to create a groundswell of desire for a product that Target would then turn around and say, we're going to bring this product in without having you pay those slotting fees. So what happens at a place like Target is you get a test. Now, the old way to rig that test was to hire a lot of people to go and buy product. So what you'll find if you check out with a lot of these retail stores, they won't tell you where they're launching your product. So if you go to a chain like Target that has, let's say, I think they have something like 1,900 stores, 2,000 stores, and they're going to test you in 10 to 15 or 20 or 100 of those stores, they're not going to tell you what they are up front. Same thing with the drug chains, because they don't want you rigging the test. So what we had to do is we had to do our own rigging. And our own rigging, what that had to do with was mobilizing these advocates that we had been building over the course of 2 years. And what we did was, through social media, and there's really no other way to do this because we were able to communicate And if you understand the way social works, I send out a tweet or I post something on Facebook, and what happens? You have followers. And each one of those followers has followers. So you guys all remember the old Doublemint gum commercial, right? You know, she has two friends, and she has two friends, and it ends up covering the screen. Well, imagine that on steroids. So I think they say the average Facebook page has 125 friends. So do the math. We had 50,000. At the time, they were called fans on Facebook. Now they're called likes. On Twitter, we had built about 60,000. And I personally, well, now I have about 50,000 followers, over 50,000. But at the time, I had about 20 some odd, 25, 30. So we created a groundswell of interest by getting people interested in advance. We're getting into Target. And we wouldn't tell people exactly when it was. We didn't know which stores they were going to be. And what enabled us to do is within days of hitting the Target stores, this group of people that loved our product was spreading it out to the world that e.l.f. is now available in Target. We sold out through every one of the 600 test stores 2 weeks before Christmas. So there was no product left before Christmas. And what that ended up doing is Target, first of all, they're very, very enamored with social. They haven't really figured it out for themselves yet. But they're very, very interested in what other people are doing with it, and they require a report from us every week. And this is great because here I am, CMO, reporting to a CEO, and we all report to somebody, right? If it's CEO, it's your wife, it's somebody that you got to answer to, okay? And we're all being asked for, what's this stuff doing for us? Like, God, so you got a lot of friends, that's great, and people are tweeting things, and you're answering them back. And very often the guy you're reporting to doesn't really understand that you just answered a customer service question, and 20,000 people saw the answer. You got to imagine there are a lot more than that one person calling in that have that question. So we created this groundswell. These people talked about it. Target came back to us and put us, right now, e.l.f. is nationwide in Target and a permanent line item at the Target stores. So, you know, these are the kind of things that can happen with social media. This is just one of the many social media success stories from my time at e.l.f., but this one perfectly demonstrates the incredible potential for this medium that cannot possibly be accurately measured until the end results are achieved. So just think about what branding used to be. You did a campaign, you waited 8 months, you checked quarterly sales. If quarterly sales were up, the campaign was a success. Well, this has a lot to do with that, except in between, you can view a lot more. You can see the people that are writing about you. You can track the amount of people that are mentioning your company name. You can see the positive implications of that and people that are saying good things. And when people aren't saying good things, you can talk about that too and adjust it. So if we had insisted on valuing this initiative simply by placing an initial dollar figure to each Facebook fan and Twitter follower, we would have highly undervalued the initial and the ongoing success of the initiative. When we look instead at the end result, not only in sales, but also the impact of greatly increased brand awareness resulting in and from product placement at Target stores. Remember, just so you understand, our online sales went up along with the Target sales. Because all of a sudden, we were in Target stores, people were seeing us, they couldn't always get what they wanted. Where did they go? They went online. And people in the Target stores would tell them go online because they want to make their customers happy. They're one of the best companies at doing that. So the product placement at Target stores, this is a different impact, and it's very clear. This is social media with the end in mind. This was a goal, and we achieved it. And then it also brought incredible awareness for the brand. The bloggers in this example were initially activated because e.l.f. took the time to reach out through social media and build trusted relationships, which resulted in the bloggers' sincere interest and involvement. Today, you guys might, I don't know, what kind of brands you buy or things, but you hear people offering you samples. They love you to write a review. Everyone's trying to get reviews written on their sites. You don't have to be a blogger to do that. You do it on Amazon. You do it on almost any site you go to. But if someone's not building a relationship with you, it doesn't incline you to want to do that. And if you're dealing with people who are true influencers, people who brands are reaching out to every day and paying money to review their products, imagine if you're doing that in advance and you're saying, no, I don't want you to review my product. I just want you to try my product. And by the way, if you have any suggestions, I'd like to hear from you. This goes through into personal relationships. It goes into every part of the company, and we'll address that a little bit more as we go along. But these bloggers then leveraged their existing relationships and built further trusted relationships with their readers. And quickly, the bloggers' positive opinions about e.l.f. products became the readers' opinions, turning the readers into brand advocates as they spread their opinions throughout their social graph. Suddenly, in a ridiculously short amount of time, the e.l.f. brand took on a huge life of its own, and Target took notice. So take a few influencers, Add social media with a focus on relationships. Remember, it's not about the platforms. It's not about the amount of fans or followers you have. It's about the relationships you're building. And you get activation resulting in high ongoing value for your brand. But just remember, just activating your audience, it's not enough. A brand always needs to be working to keep these valued influencer relationships alive and strong and build an emotional connection. And too many brands go out there, they reach out, they have an initiative, they ask a question, it gets resolved, and then the light's turned off. Nobody answers emails, nobody communicates anymore. This is the old way. It's not accepted anymore. If you're not out there communicating for yourself, someone will be out there communicating for you. It might be positive, it might be negative. Even if it's positive and you're not involved, think about how you could be leveraging that positive if you knew it was happening and you were involved in it. The key to continued success, in my opinion, for brand, retailer, e-tailer organizations is identifying with the customer. And that requires that you pay attention. Listening is finally getting the attention it deserves through social media. And take advantage of those tools to listen to many and to listen carefully. Using that information to adjust your message to keep it relevant to the consumer. Relevancy is so important. Why does this matter? Because brand loyalty declines due to lack of relevance. I mean, think of it in what you guys do. If you're not bringing relevant content to the people that need it, it doesn't mean anything. Now, I don't know a lot about what each one of you guys do and what you offer through your companies, but basically it's important to let people know that number one is you appreciate what they're doing, you want them to learn, you're bringing them valuable information, and that you're listening to them when that information isn't working. What's the biggest complaint in just traditional schools today? Kids say they're not teaching me what I want to learn, or they're not teaching me about things that are relevant to what we're doing today. And even though, yes, there have been curriculums that have been in place for years, nobody's even taken the time to explain why you're learning this. I mean, how many times do you guys hear from your kids, why am I learning about European history? Who cares, Ma? I mean, what does it matter? But, and what do most of us say? Well, I have to learn it, you have to learn it. Right? Okay, but instead, think about the relationship with your child the same way you think about a relationship with a customer. If you nurture that relationship, if you talk to them, you know, some of us have those relationships with our kids. Some of you might have teenagers. I have 2 teenage daughters. Let's not go there, okay, because the communication there just doesn't exist. And I don't know how many of you guys are fathers of girls, but you know, you go from being the king and from being this larger-than-life thing who's always right to not know I am the stupidest man in America. I don't know about the rest of you, but you know what? Take this and relate it to your business.